He did not cry when Claire died. He wanted to, but his tears had turned into something colder, something harder to explain. 3 years had passed, yet every sound in the apartment still felt like her. The echo of laughter that no longer existed, the scent of the perfume that refused to fade from the curtains. He lived among ghosts, but the worst one was the mirror. It never showed just him. It showed the man who let her die. The ad appeared one night while he scrolled half awake, words glowing across his laptop screen. Borrowed faces. 24 hours of closure. We restore what grief erased. He read it twice before he realized his hands were shaking. A clinic promised the impossible, to reconstruct the face of a lost loved one using neural imaging and synthetic memory graphs. They called it therapy. He called it mercy. He walked into the white hallway the next morning and signed the form without hesitation. The nurse's gloves smelled of antiseptic and something faintly floral. "It can feel emotional," she warned softly. "Some clients hear things. It's just echo memory." He nodded, pretending not to care. Inside, the hum of the machine filled his chest like a second heartbeat. Light wrapped around him as if it were rebuilding the world cell by cell. When he woke, his skin tingled. The air felt different, heavy with warmth. He turned toward the mirror. For a heartbeat, he thought it was a dream. Her reflection looked back. Claire's soft eyes, her slight smile, the scar above her lip he had kissed 1,000 times. He raised his hand, and so did she. The breath left his lungs. "Say her name," the technician whispered. "It helps the neurons settle." He tried, but his throat trembled. The sound came out as both of them. Claire. Her name filled the room, alive again. He returned home that evening, each step trembling. The city's noise blurred, as if the world around him refused to interrupt this reunion. In the elevator's reflection, her face looked calm, radiant. When he reached the apartment door, his keys slipped from his hand. The moment he entered, the air changed. The faint scent of her perfume drifted through the living room. He sat in silence, staring at the mirror across from the couch. The lights flickered softly, reflecting the borrowed face he wore. "I wish you were here," he whispered. The voice that came out was hers. His chest tightened. The reflection blinked once, slowly, almost too naturally. Then her lips moved. "I am." He stumbled back, heart pounding. The mirror stayed still, but the air carried her whisper again, soft and unmistakable. "You brought me home." He pressed his palms to his face, trembling. "This is a side effect," he told himself. "It's not real." But when he looked again, her reflection smiled sadly, and tears slid down her borrowed cheeks. He couldn't tell whose they were. He woke gasping for air, as if the dream had followed him into daylight. The mask of her face was still there, warm, alive, breathing against his skin. He stood before the mirror, watching her blink through him. "I missed you," he whispered. Her reflection answered. "Then stop pretending you didn't." He stumbled backward. The voice had been clear, calm, too human to be memory residue. He turned off every light, closed the blinds, covered mirrors with blankets, yet her voice filled every corner. "You borrowed me to remember, but you used to forget me even when I was alive." He covered his ears. "Stop." Silence fell. He sat on the floor beside the couch, trembling. The reflection returned faintly in the black screen of the television. She looked younger, almost peaceful. "Tell me the truth," she whispered. He shook his head. "There's nothing left to tell." The image on the screen flickered, showing something else. Rain, headlights, a bridge. The crash replayed like footage looping endlessly. Her scream echoed through the speakers before the power cut. He threw the remote, shattering the screen. For a moment the silence felt clean. Then her voice whispered through the crack in the glass. "You didn't run to save me." He pressed his hands over his ears. "I tried." The reflection's tone turned soft, almost kind. "You watched." That night, he dreamed of the bridge again. He saw himself holding the camera, rain streaking the lens, her walking away, crying. He saw the moment her foot slipped, the truck's horn blaring, the headlights reflecting off the wet road. He saw himself freeze instead of run. He woke screaming. The apartment lights flickered. The mirror glowed faintly again. Her reflection spoke clearly. You left before it happened, he whispered. I couldn't move. Her expression softened. You still can. Then the image faded, leaving him alone with the truth. He sat until morning came, staring at the faint outline of her face burned into the glass. Somewhere deep inside, the borrowed heart beneath his skin beat slower, as if learning grief all over again. The morning light felt heavier now. He made coffee with hands that shook. The reflection in the kettle blinked out of rhythm with him. Every surface had begun to echo her movements instead of his. He whispered, Claire, what do you want? Her voice came from his own mouth. To finish the story, he walked to the window. The city below blurred through rain. He pressed his forehead to the glass. You're not real. The reflection smiled faintly. Then why am I still speaking? The phone rang. The doctor's voice warned again about hallucinations. He hung up mid-sentence. When he turned, the reflection had changed. It showed the bridge again, but not the crash, what came after. Himself kneeling in the rain, camera still recording, whispering her name. You didn't stop filming, she said. You wanted proof that you loved me. He pressed his hand to his chest. I just wanted to see you again. Then look, she said. The mirror brightened until the room disappeared. The reflection stepped forward, almost alive. Her voice trembled softly. If you let me go, you'll forget me. If you keep me, you'll forget yourself. He reached out anyway. Her fingers met his. The mirror cracked under their touch, a sound like breaking glass and breaking hearts. The lights died. Silence followed. He stood trembling, staring at his reflection. Two faces stared back, one fading, one staying. Her voice whispered one last time, so close it felt like breath. Now you know what it costs to love me. The mirror went dark. He thought he had forgotten how to pray until guilt made him try again. That morning, Ethan sat on the floor surrounded by photographs, every image carrying a piece of her that refused to fade. The borrowed face in the mirror behind him looked like a stranger's, yet every glance pulled him closer to the man who once loved her and the monster who let her fall. He picked up an old picture of Claire standing on a rooftop, smiling at something outside the frame. The glass had cracked across her smile. His hands trembled as he traced the line. It felt like touching a scar that belonged to both of them. In the drawer beside him lay a roll of undeveloped film from the week before the accident. He remembered the night he shot it, the argument that followed, the sound of rain starting too soon. He had never processed it. Now, holding it against the light, he saw faint shadows on the negatives, two figures standing on the bridge. One was Claire. The other was him, turned away. The whisper slid through the air. You left before it happened. He froze. No, he said softly. I ran to get help. The voice in the mirror answered. You ran from me. The television blinked on by itself, static giving way to the same frozen image from the film. Her voice filled the room, half memory, half machine. I remember the camera. I remember you watching. He shouted. I didn't watch. I couldn't move. The reflection in the mirror changed to her face again, calm, still, sad. Every picture you took was to keep me still. You loved control more than truth. He grabbed the photo frame and hurled it against the wall. The glass shattered, but the sound came back like an echo. Behind him, the mirror rippled. The photograph appeared again within its surface, unbroken. Claire's voice softened. I kept the negatives because you never let anything fade. He looked around. Every photograph in the room had begun to move, faces blinking, lips parting, eyes following him. Each whisper overlapped until it became a storm of sound. Look, she said. See me as I was, not as you remade me. He pressed his hands to his ears, trembling. Stop. Her reflection stepped closer, hand pressed against the inside of the mirror. Then forgive me. He looked up. For what? For haunting you, she said. For loving you enough to never leave. Tears blurred his vision. I would have saved you, he whispered. I tried. Her eyes softened. Then save yourself now. The room dimmed. Every photograph fell to the floor at once, a quiet rain of memories. The mirror's light faded until only his reflection remained. But when he looked closer, her eyes were inside his again. She whispered one final time, so gently it almost sounded like grace. "The truth will find you, through the lens you used to hide." He didn't sleep that night. He just watched the mirror waiting for it to breathe. Fear became routine. He began expecting the voice the same way people expect sunrise, knowing it would come whether he was ready or not. That morning, he went outside for the first time in days, walking through the city, wearing her face. People stared but said nothing. He passed a coffee shop window and saw Claire smiling back from the reflection, alive and perfect. He whispered, "Please stop." She smiled wider. "You wanted the world to see me again." When he returned home, someone was waiting in the hallway. A man in a dark coat stood by his door, holding a folder. "Mr. Rowe," he said calmly. "Detective Callan. I need a few minutes." Ethan let him in. The detective placed photographs on the table, wet from rain.
"Bridge footage," he said.
"Recovered last month. We found someone deleting files from the police archive 2 days after the crash."
He paused.
"You." Ethan's chest tightened. "That's impossible." Callan studied him. "You look different. Have you done something to your face?" Ethan turned away. "Therapy experiment." The detective frowned. "Therapy that changes bone structure?" Before Ethan could answer, the mirror on the wall flickered. Claire's reflection appeared faintly behind him. "He was there too," she said softly. Callan looked up. "What did you say?" "Nothing," Ethan murmured. Static. The reflection grew clearer. "He filmed us both." The detective's hand trembled slightly. "What is this?" The mirror brightened, showing the bridge. The headlights flashed, and both men appeared in the reflection. Callan stepped back. "That can't be real." Claire's voice echoed through the room. "You both watched." The lights popped, plunging the room into darkness. The sound of rain filled the air, though the windows were closed. When the light returned, the detective was gone, leaving only his badge on the floor. Ethan picked it up with shaking hands. The reflection of Claire stared through the metal, whispering, "You can't hide from the man who knows your guilt." He stood in the ruined apartment as the badge began to hum in his palm. "What happens now?" he asked. Her voice answered softly. "The truth comes home." Outside, the hallway light flickered. Footsteps echoed faintly, steady, deliberate, approaching his door. He woke to the sound of his name whispered from the dark. Every mirror in the apartment flickered, each one showing the same image, Claire standing on the bridge, frozen before impact. The footage looped endlessly. "Stop," he begged.
"Please stop."
The reflection smiled faintly. "You still think this is punishment. It's memory." He walked closer, gripping the edge of the sink. "What are you trying to show me?" "The moment you decided not to move." Her voice came from everywhere now. That pause became forever. The lights turned harsh, white, surgical. The room transformed into the lab again. The technician's voice played from the speaker, calm and precise. "Emotional integration complete. Subject retains dual consciousness." He screamed, but the sound came out layered, 2 voices overlapping. He looked at his reflection and saw both faces merging. "No," he whispered. "I'm still me." The mirror pulsed. "You're us now." Every screen in the apartment powered on. The crash replayed again and again. He saw his own face watching. He saw the detective's silhouette holding a camera. Then Claire appeared behind them both, radiant, calm. "This is what truth looks like," she said. "Not revenge, not guilt. Just what happened." The loop accelerated until it became light and sound. He fell to his knees, covering his face. When he looked up, the mirror had turned black. From the dark surface came a final whisper. "You made me immortal." He reached for the glass. It rippled once beneath his touch, and then went still. The silence that followed was heavier than grief. Only the faint reflection of 2 heartbeats glowed beneath his skin, pulsing in time with hers. He had spent his whole life running from silence, but that morning it followed him like breath. The apartment was wrecked, mirrors cracked, air thick with a smell of burnt metal. Ethan sat by the window, the detective's badge still in his palm. It pulsed faintly, almost like a heartbeat. When he lifted it toward the light, her reflection shimmered across its surface. "You have to tell him," Claire whispered. "Before I do." He whispered back, "He's gone." Her voice replied softly, "No one leaves until truth is heard." A knock came from the door. Ethan froze. 3 taps, slow and deliberate. When he opened it, Detective Callan stood there again, eyes dark, coat drenched in rain. "We need to talk," he said quietly. Ethan stepped aside without a word. The detective entered, gaze scanning the shattered room. "You've been busy," he muttered. He placed a memory card on the table. "Recovered this from the bridge camera. You told us it was destroyed." Ethan's chest tightened. "What does it show?" Callan looked at him carefully. "That depends on who is watching." He plugged the card into the recorder. Static filled the air, then rain, headlights, voices. Claire's voice trembled. "You lied to me." Ethan's followed, cold and quiet. "You pushed me to." The sound of brakes. The image froze mid-flash. Callan turned to him. "You cut the last minute before submitting it." Ethan whispered. "She ran into the road." The detective leaned forward. "Or were you letting her?" The mirror on the wall began to flicker. Claire's face appeared behind them, eyes open, mouth still. "You both watched," she said softly. Callan turned sharply. "What is that?" Ethan's voice cracked. "She's not gone." The reflection smiled faintly. "Neither are you." The lights flared, and suddenly the mirror played the rest of the missing footage. Claire stepped backward toward the road, shouting. Callan stood across the bridge, camera in hand. The truck's horn blared. Both men stood frozen as she fell. The video stopped. The detective staggered back. "I was there," he whispered. "I wanted proof of negligence." "I didn't know she'd." Claire's voice cut him off. "You wanted proof of pain." Ethan turned on him. "You filmed her dying." "So did you," Callan said. "You never tried to stop her." The air thickened with electricity. The mirrors trembled. "Truth has 2 faces," Claire whispered. "Yours and his." The room exploded in light. Ethan covered his face as glass shattered around them. When he looked again, Callan was gone. Only the badge remained, glowing faintly on the floor. "You confessed," Claire whispered. "Now he will too." Ethan fell to his knees, whispering through tears, "I'm sorry." The reflection in the nearest shard smiled gently. "Then say goodbye." He looked up, shaking. "I can't." Her voice faded into the silence. "Then the truth will stay." He woke in darkness, his body aching from the storm of the night before. The air hummed like a broken wire. The mirrors had begun to repair themselves, each shard floating back toward the walls, sealing fractures with faint light. Ethan crawled toward the window, his reflection following him in broken pieces. "You said goodbye," Claire whispered. "But you didn't mean it." He pressed his forehead to the cold glass. "I told the truth." "You told half," she answered. "You never told what you wanted." He shook his head. "I wanted peace. You wanted control." Her tone was neither cruel nor kind, only certain. "You made me yours forever." The room brightened until he could see her forming again within the largest mirror, her figure whole and luminous. "You built me to last," she said. "Now live with me." The synthetic skin along his jaw tightened. He touched it and felt heat spreading through his veins. "Please stop," he whispered. She stepped closer, her reflection merging with his until they shared one heartbeat. "You can't destroy what you made," she said. Every screen flickered to life again, showing the crash from new angles. Each replay layered until the sound became deafening. He covered his ears, shouting her name. The walls shook. The mirrors burst outward, shards swirling through the air like falling stars. In every fragment, her face shone. "You kept me," she whispered. "Now I'll keep you." Light flooded the room, consuming everything. He screamed as his reflection bent inward, merging with hers completely. Then the light collapsed. Silence followed. When he opened his eyes, the mirrors were gone. His skin burned where the mask had fused. The reflection in the window showed a face that was not hers, not his, but something in between. Her voice came softly, almost loving. "We are what truth makes." He touched the glass and whispered, "Then truth has no mercy." The reflection smiled. It never did. He didn't recognize the world anymore. Morning came in fragments. The sun fractured through the cracked window, light breaking into ribbons across the floor. He stood barefoot among them, watching the reflection in the glass tremble faintly. The face looking back was both his and hers, their eyes sharing one gaze. "You're still here," he whispered. Her voice answered inside his chest. "You wanted forever." He walked through the apartment slowly, stepping over glass, photographs, and pieces of his old life. Every mirror was gone, yet he could still feel her presence in the air, soft and patient. "What happens now?" he asked quietly. "You live," she said, "but not as before." He opened the window. The wind brushed his skin like a hand he remembered too well. The city below moved with ordinary indifference. He wanted to believe this was peace, but peace didn't whisper. Her voice filled him again, warm now, almost human. "You can't bury what you love inside guilt. Let it breathe." He looked at his reflection one last time. "Goodbye, Claire." The glass rippled faintly, her lips mouthing the same words in silence. For the first time, she smiled without sadness. The mask pulsed once beneath his skin, then stilled. The heartbeat he had carried inside him for so long faded into one steady rhythm. He turned toward the door, sunlight breaking across his borrowed face. The apartment was silent, the kind of silence that forgives. He whispered to the empty air, "Thank you." Outside, the world continued unaware. Inside, the reflection lingered for a moment longer in the glass, her eyes glinting softly. Then it disappeared, leaving only one face behind, the face that stayed.